This is the Nasserman Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and Jon Zella.
Welcome back to the Nasserman Hockey Podcast. I'm Jon Zella, and tonight we flipped the script a little bit. I'm here with James Nichols from the fourth period, and Joe Pantorno has returned from his lengthy break from AM New York. This episode will be chatting about the UBS Arena, Tuesday's media availability, Bridgeport's roster, Isles rookie debuts, Isles fans hitting the panic button. But before that, how are both of you?
Doing okay. It's nice to be back. I feel like it's been months. Have we even talked like during the season? I feel like we haven't.
I don't think you've been on since the beginning of the season, if memory serves. I can't recall, but it's also been a little bit of a blur.
It's been busy.
Not having the off-season break. Jay and I have discussed that before. Not having that break has made this really hard. Kind of just going right in. There was news kind of all summer. There was a lot of speculation. Everyone was still kind of in it. I guess that's a good problem considering that means the Islanders are making it pretty far, right? It'd be different if they were kind of off since whenever the July 1st was this last summer. Yeah. I can't remember what all the date changes, but Jay, under the weather. How are you doing?
You said it. I don't feel good. I hate everything right now, especially most of you on Twitter. And
yikes.
Yeah, whatever. I don't feel good. But let's get this going.
Yeah, it has been a little tough kind of dealing with that and sifting through everything today, especially as the news broke. But I think before we get there, I wanted both of your takes on UBS Arena. You were both there, which I was super jealous about. James, you were there for the press conference last Friday. Joe, I know you were also there. Did it meet your final expectations? Because you had at least one or two other visits beforehand. What was it? What was it like for you? Did it meet your expectations? Let's hear it.
It blew me away because the last time I was there, it was just bare bones and nothing was installed or anything like that. And then just a matter of a few months, it was complete or 99% complete. So when I got there and, you saw the concourse that looks like Grand Central Station, I was like, holy crap. Like, where am I? This is an Islanders arena? Like, oh my God. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was insane to see the progress and how fast it was. And then it was insane to think about this is the new place to be. This is their home. And it's the benchmark now. It was outstanding.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to travel around a little bit and see some other arenas, and I always loved the Coliseum, but going to Dallas and Denver and even Ottawa, just like these big open concourses, there were kind of no issues, no lines. You kind of just do your thing. Everything's a little more expensive, but it's still really nice. So to think that the Islanders are kind of on that level or above that level is kind of amazing. Joe, you had quite the video from your perch, as you said, in the press box for the first game. Were you there for both of them?
I was.
Your overall thoughts? You kind of were there for game action. Was the energy the same? Did it feel like an Islander game? Will it be home eventually? Will they kind of break it in?
There really haven't been many professional sporting venues that I've gone to and I've been in awe of. And maybe because I'm pretty well versed in the history of the Islanders and all the arena troubles. And, I think I can relate to a lot of fans who've grown up in the Coliseum. I did too. I watched a majority of my hockey growing up in Nassau Coliseum. So after going there opening night, and I got there probably about 4 hours before puck drop. So I kind of had the place to myself where I just walked, the second level, the first level, the event level, the concourse, everything like that. And it really hasn't sunk in yet that this is going to be the home of the Islanders and the home of Islanders fans. And I don't know how long that's going to take for that to actually sink in. Eventually it will feel like home for sure. They definitely did a great job ensuring that there was the low ceiling and, making sure that they have that intimate setting. And I think it will kind of have more of a Coliseum feel to it eventually. The unfortunate thing is the product on the ice hasn't really offered a lot of chances for us to really hear UBS Arena in full voice. Obviously, Saturday, the home opener, there was, everybody was pretty amped up, and then things kind of calmed down quick when the Flames got off to a quick start and the Islanders were playing catch up. Sunday, they weren't competitive in the slightest, so there was really not much to cheer about. That being said, I think there's this novelty surrounding the arena where people are still excited and the atmosphere still is great and still was great given the circumstances and everything that the team is going through. So I think once things get back to full health and we start seeing the Islanders hockey that we've grown accustomed to over the last 2 years, this place is really going to start getting loud.
Yeah, I kind of expected that to be part of the answer. It was hard to tell watching it on TV what the volume was or the voice. I kind of like how you said that. The full voice of it hasn't warmed up yet. We kind of went in there raw. It was more like a punk show, just kind of like whatever happened was going to happen. To kind of stick on this for one more second, and while you were saying this, it reminded me that there were some comments, and I don't know how, if they're unsubstantiated or whatever, that there were parts of it that are unfinished, or there was something like there was always gonna be people like even leading up to the day that it was going to be delayed, which I thought was complete nonsense the entire time. But is there some, or what, I don't want to say is there some truth? Do you know of anything, even if it's small, that's unfinished? James kind of mentioned the 99%. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's really tiny, minuscule, minute stuff. It's nothing that's affecting the game day or the game watching experience. I mean, you'll maybe see like the floors cleaned up a little bit more. You might see a little bit more refining of, say, artwork on the walls or a couple of bare spots here and there, but nothing that's
they were opening that arena on the 20th. Like that was just happening.
Of course, it's nothing like a huge wart that's standing out there. So really, I went last week with the on Veterans Day where Shaquille O'Neal was there and he was promoting his big chicken sandwich, whatever they want to call it. I think it's $16, so it's big and expensive. So
I love a chicken sandwich, so I
sure. Shout out to Blue Line Deli. I mean, It's great that they hooked up with Shaq too. But really, from 2 Thursdays ago to opening night, so it was 8 or 9 days. They like hit the warp speed button where we were walking around and some of us were looking at each other like, oh, is this going to be done in time for opening night? And then, you show up and it's like, wow, how did they do that? So, kudos to everybody who was working on that. I'm sure they were just working crazy long hours, crazy overtime, and hopefully they'll get to experience and enjoy the finished product just like all the fans will.
I think it's funny that if Islander fans were pointing out anything that like was undone, it's like you're being really picky for a fan base that dealt with the Coliseum and then Barclays for like a cup of coffee. The fact that you're complaining about anything when there was like water dripping, 10-year-old hot dogs, like that's nuts to me to even like remotely think that you should be complaining about that. Like you're looking for it at that point. You're just a pessimist. You're not there to enjoy it. You paid money to complain like on purpose. I know like parking is just like we all have to get used to it. That's fine. I did get a couple texts from people that went to the game and the railroad's a little screwy and all sorts of stuff. But going to some other arenas, like it's not a clean affair. Like it's always a little bit of a mess. In Philly, Ottawa is out in nowhere. So yeah, I don't Islander fans that are complaining at this point or whatever, just looking for it.
Yeah, I think they have to realize that there's going to be growing pains, especially because this was such a down to the wire project. They really didn't have the opportunity to figure out all these logistics and all these moving parts. So, opening night, I showed up and they were sending me to a parking lot that was like a mile away into the Belmont complex. I had to take a shuttle there, all this stuff, but it's growing pains. And
they'll figure it out.
And we're learning on the fly.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of closing up on this portion of the show. James, anything stand out to you in particular that you were able to see? I know you weren't there for a game day, so you'll have to report back after you're there for an actual match. But anything that you were like, wow, I can't. This is amazing. Even from the photos that you saw from game day.
Yeah, no, I mean, even when I was there on Friday with Joe for the ribbon cutting, we were walking up where fans would walk through to maybe go to some vendors at the team store. And what was really cool to me is that when we walked at least 50%, and from what I'm told, around the whole arena looking into the rink, there's not a sight line that's to be missed to the ice. You can see ice from the whole way around. And that's really cool to me because previously in any other arena, if you had to leave to go get a beer or a pretzel or whatever you were getting, I know you would be getting a popcorn, John.
After the first period, I get
Yeah.
my popcorn, the soda. You know me so well.
You'd be able to see the game no matter what you were doing. You go, you walk up to the concourse, and you grab what you got to get, and you don't miss a beat. So I think that was really cool, something that Islander fans hadn't had in the previous 50 years. And that was one of the things that made me turn around and say, oh wow, big boy arena, that's really cool.
Yeah, Joe, same question. I have a few of my own, but definitely since you kind of were there for a lot of quiet time, you got to saw like the anything that you were like from the fan side of things, not from your
Yeah.
reporter brain.
I mean, from the fan side of thing, I think it was just really, it was like the collective sigh of relief where, again, the last year plus, everything's just been whatever. I'm not going to get into politics or
Why? What happened?
updates or no, nothing big. No,
Oh,
it's just,
okay. I thought I had to catch up on something, but
oh
that's
no,
nice.
no, nothing.
Don't bot. Okay, just
Yeah,
watch Bo Burnham's inside, and
sure,
I'll figure it out. Okay.
perfect. No, it's just it was finally where these fans could breathe a sigh of relief. Where during the pandemic, it was, oh, well, now this is something else that's going to slow this thing down. And who's complaining from Elmont? And, oh, my God, there was a pipe that burst at UBS Arena. This is never going to happen. And, oh, it's a 13-game road trip. And, oh, my God, the team isn't playing great right now. And they finally got there and it was just like, okay, we're here. And everybody was just, I don't know, everybody was so happy to be there. And it was just so nice to kind of see the, kind of like the generations where you got to see everybody, where it was, the old heads who, cut their teeth at the Coliseum, and the young kids who have known nothing but arena chaos, whether they were going to Uniondale or Brooklyn and now Elmont. Now they're finally home. I thought that was great. And, it certainly kind of brings a little nostalgia factor too, where you kind of wish, well, you know what? I wish I was kind of there down in street clothes, maybe with my dad, and experiencing it like that. So it really, I think it was just it's such a special place for these fans, and finally a real place that's completely dedicated to them, where they can come to, and it's theirs. That's it. So I really love that.
I like that your favorite part has nothing to do with the arena necessarily.
No.
It has to do, and I can respect that as even if I haven't been there, I understand this kind of this other kind of thing that was hanging over the franchise for so long is just kind of done, and that's what I was looking. It's really funny you say that. I think I've said that multiple times here. Maybe I've even written about it. We just need to get over this. We need to get past it. Now it's here. Opening weekend is done. I kind of don't even want to talk about UBS. Like, I was excited to do it here because I really wanted to hear, firsthand perspective of kind of what had happened, but and what it looked like and all of that. But I'm kind of like, okay, the fanfare subsided. It's home now. It needs to be broken in. It's like a new car. It won't feel like it for a little bit. Someone will vomit somewhere and christen it, or if they haven't already, or whatever happens to a hockey rink to christen it, and we'll get there pretty quick. It's still Long Island's team and in a Long Island arena, so they'll figure it out. Getting to what you alluded to before, some of the issues on the ice, some of this little stuff off the ice. Today's media availability was not fun. I was following along with you and a bunch of other folks as Lou was speaking for about 8 minutes earlier today. Felt like an eternity kind of waiting for that to come through. Not fun waiting. Like, everyone was just anticipating postponement. That doesn't necessarily happen. We can still kind of, I think some fans are crossing their fingers at this point because of the roster issues, which we'll get to. More bad news on the COVID front. Bailey, who I saw maybe coming back by this weekend, still not ready to play. He was still in Florida, which is crazy. That I feel like they haven't been in Florida for like a month. I'm sure it's only been like 10 days, but that's a long time. Lee, Pellegrin, Johnson, Bellows, and today Chara was added to that. Nelson also announced 2 to 4 week injury in addition to Pollock. They'll both be out until mid-December, which feels very close and now very far away with both of their injuries. That leaves, and I was looking at this and I just realized seeing it kind of laid out, that leaves 2 defenders from the opening night roster continuing. So my question to both of you, Joe, you can go first here so James can prepare himself, doesn't cough all over the microphone. What do the Islanders do here? What's the path?
It's really just kind of batten down the hatches. There's really nothing that they can do right now. Where basically, I think a lot of people are looking to the NHL to kind of bail the Islanders out, and it's pretty puzzling that, again, when we're talking right now, we're about 23 hours out from puck drop. They haven't postponed the game yet against the Rangers here, which is a little head scratching because it seems like every day we're getting updates of someone else going into COVID protocol. And again, these are guys that have played with the team. They've been in the locker room recently, so the team is constantly exposed to it. So it's a pretty confusing time. And I think on top of the struggles that the Islanders were dealing with and the 13-game road trip, now they're dealing with the possibility, well, not the possibility anymore, of an outbreak in their locker room. And now they're supposed to just focus on hockey, which is impossible. But that's what Lou Lamoriello was talking about today, where it's just we have to focus on the things that we can control. And that's playing hockey and getting back to, the Islanders' way of hockey. So it's I don't really know if there's anything else they can do in terms of looking outside the organization. I know that Lamoriello said that teams were calling them, but I also think that teams were calling them knowing that they reek of desperation. Where, oh, you know what? You need some help. You're already 7 points out of the 7th place spot in your division. Well, maybe we can help you out. Who knows? Obviously, I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything, or what teams have called anything about anything. It's Lou. It's a steel trap. We'll never know. But with that being said, I mean, it's just really the only thing that they can do is get through it. And at this point, if that means they come out of it and there's 7 games under 500, well, that's the way it is. And you just kind of got to chalk it up to the forces of nature really, having their way with the Islanders. And then you move on and you pray that there's enough time that they can make up some ground here.
Yeah, part of the Lamoriello quote that really stuck out to me was many teams want to help us, but they can't really help us. And that meant it was things were too expensive, or what I really took from that is, what are we going to trade for an entire roster? You kind of have to wait it out. Exactly to your point. We'll get to some of the ramifications throughout the franchise, up and down the thing. But James, you had kind of compared it to Ottawa. Some confusion with how the NHL is kind of handling this. What's your take on what's going on there?
Yeah. So, I mean, earlier today, I was like, I don't really see the difference between the two situations here. I get the literal difference is three players. I knew that already. Thank you, everyone. But what I really meant was, are we going to sit here and wait for this to get worse? Like when we see it happening every day? Like
what's 2 players? Like if that's the difference, and then what? It's an entire
what's
AHL
2
roster.
players, right? On one side, it's what's 2 players to cancel a game, and on the other side, it's two more people who could get sick, and hopefully nothing bad happens with this. But are we really going to wait it out? And well, it's not the worst it could be yet before it. Like no, it's getting there. Like it's obviously it's an issue.
And then you have to think about the long-term health of the players,
right,
which we've seen have issues.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, there were a couple players in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Goalies here and there. Definitely tough to kind of consider.
Marco Rossi of the Minnesota Wild. Like
right.
He was out for he was supposed to play in the NHL last year. He was out for the whole year.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too, especially with, a guy like Chara, who I saw tweets like, "Oh, this is like the only way he wasn't going to be in the lineup," and I was really disappointed in that.
Yeah,
This is the health and well-being of people first,
right.
right? This is far beyond the play on the ice, and you can be unhappy with Char, who we can roast later this episode. It has nothing to do with, if he's healthy and can be a positive contributor to the team, I want him in the lineup.
Sure.
But those two things are separate. I'm not looking
Yeah.
for something to happen where he can't play.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, like Joe said, it's a bit head scratching because, again, are we really going to wait this out? But as far as what they can do is, you know, for years, it's been a next man up mentality. Everyone was looking for an excuse for them to rally about something, right? They were chosen to win the division. They were chosen to, get to the cup, maybe even win the cup. Oh, well, we don't like that. We want them to be the underdogs. Well, here we are, seven, regulars out now. And, Bridgeport's mostly playing in the NHL at the moment. So, it's an us against the world kind of thing going right now. Maybe they can rally behind something like that. Next man up. You had the Bridgeport call up, so maybe they can contribute something. But that's really all they can do.
I think what was really, I think the most striking thing when we were talking to Lou today was the fact that even he admitted that he has no idea about the threshold of what it would take for the NHL to postpone these games.
Right.
And this is an opportunity, I guess, to establish one because it's already happened twice. You're between 15 to 20 games into the season for most of the league here. So we're still in the opening stretches here. And, I have a hunch that this isn't going to be the last time that it's going to happen either. So the NHL has to get to the bottom of this now. And the fact that they're basically tinkering, and this is not to be hyperbolic or dramatic, the fact that they're tinkering with almost the entire season of the Islanders here, which is on the line. They're in the toughest division in hockey. They're already 17 points behind the division leader. Yes, they have games in hand, but you got to win those games. And the fact that they are severely underwhelmed because of this virus, that they've allowed other teams to have postponements to get healthy, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense right now. And it's at some point we're going to have to get an explanation from either Gary Bettman or somebody in the league.
Yeah, San Jose had a similar issue, and they played through it. Part of that was, I think, the scheduling issue where they were coming out east for whatever stretch, and they had them play through it. I think there's a similar thought with the Islanders where they play pretty much every other day or every third day from here to the Olympic break, which I think this also has some ramifications there because I don't think that was 100% solidified they were going, NHL players, that is. So I think that throws it into question, like, well, if it's happening here, who knows what's going to happen over there, and blah blah blah. So I think that opens up a can of worms that I don't know a whole lot about, but there were rumblings on podcasts and writers, I think larger than us. Not to knock any of us down a peg or two, but that we're talking the Elliot Friedmans and so on and so forth. So I think that there's that's definitely a possibility, something we need to pay attention to as it goes on. But with the Islanders schedule just getting dense from here on out, I was looking, they start postponing now. They're going to wind up having a tough time on the other side of this, ending the season. And now they do have a favorable schedule that it's at home. Now I think it's rescheduling those games now after putting a schedule together with not just the Islanders, whatever else is going on there. Remember, the first event there was not an Islander game, right? It was a concert of an artist of which I cannot remember.
Chicago.
The irony they couldn't get a Long Island act to open that is not that I want it to be Billy Joel, because I think we could be done with him, but somebody. Aren't you, like, one of you is a Dream Theater fan? Like, you can't, like, something like make it a big blowout.
Should have been taken back Sunday.
It should have been taken back Sunday. That would have been pretty cool. I saw them in Buffalo of all places, just because it's close to where I live. Jay, you touched on Bridgeport, and I thought this was, this is something I was following throughout the day. I was trying to, like, figure it out. I mentioned it in my piece with the hockey writers, and the ramifications kind of throughout the organization, and I didn't really realize how far it went down. And this is where some contracts get into play, as far as you have guys on two-way deals, or rather NHL, AHL deals, players just on AHL contracts, players on AHL, ECHL contracts, and then players that are just in Worcester. With the Railers, the ECHL affiliate, and they're like, Bridgeport's like running out of players. They're, with Hickey up, they're down to 6, and then that's it. There's no one else on kind of a deal with Worcester. They don't have a whole lot of players either to pull from, and then you're kind of going into the SPHL, and I'm not really sure where the affiliations lie. Kind of going from there. Golishev and Hickey were called up today, or on Tuesday, ahead of the presumably the game with the Rangers on Wednesday night, which is good to kind of give Golishev that chance. I wish it was under different circumstances. I'm sure we all do. But Michael Fornabayo said that, something to this effect, that, this hasn't been the worst situation. AHL rosters are fickle. This has happened before too. He said a worse effect than this, but this is starting to get a little bit tough. There were some players kind of going back and forth there. But we'll starting to get into a little bit of the positive here. Robin Salo. James, I know you're itching to say this because you were from kind of like day one. It was Wallstrom on the first line, Robin Salo kind of cracking that lineup, giving, Aho didn't seem like he was going to be that much of an option, although I think he's played well. But giving kind of Green and Chara that break, you were Robin Salo all the way. So I want to hear your thoughts on both games from this past weekend.
Yeah, no, I like the way he played. More so the first game than the second game, but I think, in the second game he saw more of the opponent's top players than he did in the first game. So, it's bound to happen, and the rookie mistakes will be there. But overall, I think he brought an element to the team that hasn't really been there. He can move the puck. He can pass the puck. He can shoot the puck. It's something from a defender that we haven't really seen too much. Save Sebastian Aho, who's really just getting his first chance as well. So I really like what I saw from him, and it reminded me of the Devin Tays situation a few years ago when Trotz wanted Devin Tays out of camp, and Lou Lamoriello said, I think he needs to season a little bit more down in Bridgeport. Down he went, an injury occurred, and then Tays was recalled and never looked back. I think Salo has the opportunity to do the same thing here. Tays had a little bit more time in the AHL and on North American ice, what have you, but I think Salo could do the same thing. So he brings an element to the team that they really desperately need in a puck moving defenseman. So I'll be curious to see how he fits in with the regulars back, with Pelech back, with Pulock back, Green as well. Maybe Chara could get a rest here and there, and Salo could fill in his spot every other game or something like that. But I really liked what I saw from Salo. I think he can kick it in the NHL.
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good. There was something really satisfying about seeing a number 2 skate up the ice on the power play.
Yeah, that
made
was
me
nice.
It did make me feel a little bit better, honestly. And he's big. He is not a small human being. He looked pretty confident out there. I think maybe the second game wasn't so good. And Joe, I saw a couple tweets throughout the game to that effect. Did you see a big difference between the games? Was the Toronto game just a team that's won, I think, 10 of 11? They've Arthur Staple joked that they finally learned Lou Lamoriello hockey. The neutral zone's getting clamped down. It's a team full of stars finally playing like a team full of stars. Their bottom of the lineup players are kind of playing role players. They kind of look like the Islanders, save for 40 shots. I think the shot count stays the same, but it's the Islanders clamping down still. A lot of shots to the outside, but was Salo a victim of kind of a team rolling? What were the differences between those games, and just your overall thoughts on Salo?
Yeah, I think in part of what you said, I think that was the case. He played 21 minutes and 42 seconds in his NHL debut. He led the Islanders in ice time, and he looked very, very good. And then the very next night, again, this is the second leg of a back-to-back, he gets even more time against a Toronto Maple Leafs team that has even more firepower. So he's acting as the number one defenseman, and he's going to be tasked in trying to shut guys down like Mitch Marner, John Tavares, Austin Matthews. So you're right. As to what James said, there were a couple of bobbles here and there, a couple of rookie mistakes here and there. Like you said, it's expected. But at the same time, all of a sudden, I think we've all come to the realization, and it certainly has helped with the number, that the Islanders have an in-house replacement for Nicoletti, which I think was a pretty large concern amongst a lot of fans here within the first couple of weeks of the season, saying that, okay, this team really does miss him. As much as I think a lot of them wanted him out solely for the cap flexibility to potentially sign a big star, obviously that didn't happen. So you lose Letty and you don't get the big star. So, yeah, I think they realize just how invaluable he is, and they miss him, I think, more than they thought. So, I do believe that Salo does have the promise to be that replacement. Do I think that he's going to get more playing time, or at least some playing time, when the Islanders do return to full health? I'd like to think so, but Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz are pretty fickle with their young prospects. So we'll see. I really don't. That's all I could really say.
That's an interesting point. That last bit where they're fickle with their younger players, their rookies, and all of that. Because what I noticed between Aho and Salo, so particularly the defense, because I think the offense is a little more complicated. I'm not really sure where Trotz goes, but as far as the defense is concerned, with Aho first, when he got his chance, kind of when Pulock went down, and then now Salo, they don't trust these guys. They don't put them in the lineup. They're blah blah blah. It's got to be Chara. It's got to be Green. All this, or Green is steady as she goes. I don't know that you kind of move that, Jay, that he's kind of your guy. But as for when they do get an opportunity, they're playing the most minutes of any player. And that's what's, I think, even with Pellick in the lineup, Aho still was either really close or played a minute or two more. And that could have been some power play time, of which is a different kind of problem, continuing problem with the Islanders. But I thought that was very interesting. It's
kind of like what I said last week with Kiefer Bellows. He would be in and out of the lineup, and when he would get his shot, he'd get top line minutes with Barzell, or top 6 minutes. And Wahlstrom would stick on the third line. It was like, well, why? Why isn't Wahlstrom moving up and Bellows filling in later?
Yeah, I do. I also find that interesting. I forget my counter argument for that last week. I could go either way on it. I think it's just a matter of the line that Wahlstrom is on is clicking. There's no reason to mix up two different lines and throw Bellows on a line that's already doing really well. Trying to put Wahlstrom on this other line that may need him, but it would take time to click. So I think that may have been even what I said last week, and that's probably they stick with the lines. It takes kind of like one or two players to move around. He's very strategic. We've seen that throughout the playoffs. Kind of these little chess moves to make the lines better. So when one player goes down, you get somebody else that comes in. You try not to mess up the rest of the lineup. Lines 3 and 4, save for the last couple of games with the COVID breakout, it's been pretty consistent. Even with Bailey out, you weren't kind of mixing things up too much. You switched Bailey and Palmieri. That got the first line going a little bit, a few more chances, had a passer on that line. Who knew? Maybe anyone that's paid attention to Bailey, despite the detractors, myself included, when Bailey plays on those first lines, he's a puck mover. His play as of late wasn't great, but by and large, he's an asset. I'm not sure for how much longer, but he's definitely there.
Hey everyone, we just want to take a quick break to talk to you about our sponsors over at DraftKings. The NHL season is underway, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer to celebrate the greatest sport on ice. New customers can bet just $1 on any NHL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. Doesn't matter if it's a one-timer or a deflection, however they light the lamp, you win. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So here's what you do. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, throw down $1 on any NHL game, and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. This week, one puck in the net nets you a big win with promo code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Ho ho ho, ladies and gentlemen. The holidays came early here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products including their all-new ultra-premium body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself, or someone who needs it, the gift of beautiful hair, skin, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use code NHP20 for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to leave your significant other some cookies and milk at the bottom of your chimney. I'm talking about the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the Signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary, advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your nuts. It's also waterproof so you can use it in the shower. It's like a gift to your partner with less mess. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant, moisturizer, and toner. It's time to keep your North Pole feeling and smelling fresh. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products, so get yourself, your dad, your brother, and friends the best gift of all, the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with code NHP20 at manscaped.com. Every guy out there needs to add Manscaped to their wish list this season. Once again, get 20% off and free shipping with code NHP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code NHP20. Make Santa proud and shop Manscaped this season.
A lot of call-ups, some players you can see on Bridgeport's roster. Andrioff was kind of leading the way there with Golashev and goals. And then, we kind of see, I looked on the roster a few weeks ago, looking at Richard Panik. I think we mentioned it here. Either 2 assists or 2 goals in like 11 games. Didn't look really good. Certainly not for that cap hit. It was concerning. So then when all this happened and we see him in the lineup, I definitely got concerned. That wasn't the case, though. He kind of went out there. He was throwing his body around. He had a lot of good chances. Panik, and then any other players that kind of stuck out to you that either surprised at what they did, or second question, are you surprised that other players, and I won't name names, I want to hear it organically from both of you, any players you were surprised, especially now with the lineup really depleted, surprised that didn't get called up? So Joe, you can kind of lead the way here. Thoughts on Panik, surprises or disappointments, and anyone else called up?
Panik I was impressed with. Especially during the home opener against Calgary. He showed some pretty good rapport with Matthew Barzal. He was working his way to the gritty areas. Everything that Barry Trotz wants to see from a forward, Panik was doing it. A little bit of a regression again against Sunday, but again, everybody took a step back, so it's kind of hard to kind of break that down. In terms of call-ups, at this point, nothing really surprises me. I figured Golashev might have gotten called up earlier instead of Andreoff, but steady as she goes. But I guess, and it's the thinnest, the very, very thinnest of silver linings here that the Islanders could possibly take out of this, and I don't even think it'll necessarily happen. But this is a golden opportunity for Barry Trotz to kind of forego at least the offensive system and just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. This is a team that's starving for offense. We know the defense has taken a step back, and now that moving forward, they could potentially be playing with 4 newcomers for the next few games. Why not put Oliver Wahlstrom on the first line next to Matthew Barzal? Why not put Anthony Beauvillier on the first line next to Matthew Barzal? If the team needs offense that bad, I know the distribution of offensive talent is going to be important, and it's the 4-line system, and it's this, the wave after wave of attack. I get that. But at the same time, if this is a team that's starving for goals, and what do they have? 2 in their last 2 games, and they both come from Brock Nelson, who's now out 2 to 4 weeks. You got to find this production from somewhere else, and there's an obvious shakeup that's needed. So at this point, just keep on shuffling the deck, see what happens.
I think part of the issue, and I saw someone mention this today, I wish I wrote down who it was that said it, but part of it is a little bit to your point that it's wave after wave and that it's not leaning on any forward lines in particular to play heavy minutes, unlike the defense apparently. But Barzell getting 15, 16 minutes a game is a very similar argument to years ago, Austin Matthews not getting that time with the Maple Leafs, especially in tight games or games, Trotz said in his availability of the night in the Calgary game, that was a 3-2 game, right? There were 2 empty net goals, right? So that's a closer game than what it looked like on paper, especially with the Islanders kind of putting on pressure late, despite the depleted lineup. It didn't look as bad as it turned out to be with the empty net goals. But even still, you got to see Bars. In my opinion, and to this person's point, got to give him some more minutes. So I wonder if it's a combination of kind of like loading up every once in a while. You throw Pajot up with him, you throw Beauvillier up with him, you throw Wallstrom, or throw Barzell down on that line with Parise and Wallstrom, which I believe I did see at times. Barzell was getting some extra shifts, but it was still really spread out. Obviously, it goes down throughout the lineup. Jay, over to you. Any surprises? What do you think of Panik? Other Islanders forwards call-ups. I know it's hard to keep track. I frankly can't myself. But anyone stick out to you?
I think I was just mostly surprised that it was Panik first and not Golashev, only because, like I had said to you, I think a couple weeks ago, I feel like he had to have been contemplating going back to the K. So I thought that maybe they would have wanted him to get his shot at the NHL first, see if maybe, like you said, they could throw something at the wall and it'll stick with him. But with that being said, Panik looked great. I can't complain. I was kind of waiting for somebody to tweet out the meme of a picture of Leo Komarov and then cleaning the glasses and then putting them back on, and it was Richard Panik. and
That's pretty good.
It didn't happen. But I thought that he played a little bit of what we would have gotten out of Leo Komarov, but he has the offensive upside to also contribute there as well. So I know a lot of people on Twitter are like, well, you guys really like, players who work real hard but don't score goals. It's like, well, who's scoring goals right now? Is anybody scoring goals right now? So
look, we're trying to play into the system, and I think
Right.
that's part of what we get roasted for on here is
Yeah.
we're trying to think like Trotz, right? We're not trying to think, get Tarasenko and get this and
Right.
make this trade and load. Like that's just not what they're going to
Right.
do. So I'm not going to sit here and pie in the sky this within an inch of
Right.
its life. It's super not worth it.
And
Right.
that's when we start looking into the the little details of the game that maybe not everybody looks at, like an expected goals for analytic. That tells a story there. And if you have a 70% in expected goals, that means you're contributing on offense. And maybe you're just a little bit unlucky right now, which is something
That's a
I
big
actually
part.
saw. Right, which is something I saw today on Twitter as well. That the Islanders are really unlucky right now. There are plenty of opportunities that probably would have been in the back of the net in a normal circumstance, but right now things are just wild.
I'll
Just
read a couple.
wild for the team.
I imagine you saw the same thing from Carey at Habermetrics.
It might have been him.
The Islanders, and this was only yesterday. Geez, that felt like 2 days ago. The Islanders rank 11th in high danger chances per 60 at 5-on-5, but 20th in high danger shooting percentage at 15.84. Over the last 6 games, those ranks are 7th in high danger chances per 60, 31st in shooting percentage, which, as you said before, you have to be good to be lucky.
To be good.
Exactly. And you knew exactly where I was going. And so I think the Islanders are just kind of falling into the trap where they're really unlucky and they're really bad. Right. They don't, in other words, they don't have the talent or the structure is kind of falling apart there without the certain players, because this is what a little bit of my worry last year was. When a one player would go down, it reminded me a lot of that, the character from Parks and Rec when they get the flu, and he's like, a little piece of sand gets into the machine, and it falls apart. And that's what I thought about the Islanders. Like, one little thing gets into this, and it's just absolute bedlam. But it is good thinking about, like, if Panik maybe were to return, or Panik. I'm sorry if I'm messing up their pronunciation. If Parise doesn't stick around, I see them as 1-for-1. Thought that was really good. Is maybe Panik has a little bit more of an upside. Offensively, he's a little bit younger. A lot of players are younger than Parise. So that's kind of a good transition. Like, at least you have these kind of replacement players. But the player that I was thinking about, and I'm excited both of you didn't mention this, because I certainly didn't think about it until I saw it, was Otto Koivula. Not involved in any of these call-ups. Now, natural center, but as we've talked about before, other teams have kind of talked about this, other podcasts have talked about this with teams, is that natural centers coming up through systems typically play the wing until they're ready to play center. That gave me pause as to, this is kind of a time for him to prove that he can play the wing in the NHL with some space, but a lot of players seem to be ahead of him. Be that because of NHL experience or otherwise, although Andreoff hasn't had a ton, but he's been scoring goals in Bridgeport. So I'm wondering, is this something you've thought about, or am I kind of sparking this thought for the first time?
I thought about it as well, and did have that thought because I thought of Jesper Kotkaniemi. The problem that the Carolina Hurricanes had with the Montreal Canadiens had with him was that they started him in the NHL right away as a center.
Right.
And when he got moved over to Carolina, they started him on the wing, and that was something that they actually addressed publicly. They were like, "Listen, we're going to start him on the wing. We think it's best for his development." So I thought about that when I thought about Koivula coming up. That was a couple of days ago before it was 7 players who were down. Now there's probably an opportunity for him to play somewhere on the wing. But like you said, there's guys ahead of him at the moment. So,
which is weird, right? Because he's been with the organization. They know what they
Yeah.
have in him by and large. And does that mean that he's kind of Michael Dalcol? Although I don't really know what the status of his contract is at this point, if at all. Like, what is going on? Like, there are kind of 2 players there that aren't being touched, that seemingly kind of fit. They've even been, maybe Koivula's played a game or 2 under Trotz in the last 3 seasons. Dalcol certainly has. There's ever a chance for Dalcol, at least for his next contract after the Islanders, or his future in the league, this was the time, right? That's confusing to me, especially a guy that Trotz really liked. He knows how to be a role player. That's very strange to me.
Something that comes to mind right now is aside from Aho, everybody else who's been called up has never played with the team before. So maybe they're just trying to see now, while it's early, what do we got in these guys? Do they fit? What's their role here? Because they've never been in the Islander lineup prior to these past few games. Andreoff never was. Salo never was. Now Golishev is up, never was. So maybe that's what they're doing this early on. There's time to make these things up, and we know we have in Dalcol when he comes up. We know we have in Koivula when he comes up. They've been there before. Let's see what Salo's got. Let's see what Golishev's got. That's the only thing I could think of right now.
Yeah, in terms of just looking from an offensive standpoint, and yeah, you can say Salo and Aho as well. You ever think the Islanders are just looking for offense? Dalcol's played. He's had problems finding the back of the net. Koivula's had a couple of chances. I guess they don't feel that he could kind of provide the spark from the wing.
It seems clear to me.
Lost. Right. So, Andreoff has what? He had 9 points in 15 games down in Bridgeport. I know Golishev had 5 goals down there. I don't know. At least I figure they're, I guess who's putting up the big offensive numbers, or the more offensive numbers, gets the chance.
It's an interesting take, considering the fact that this team is built on the defense first thing. So this kind of throws a wrench into it a little bit, because you're not wrong, right? They've clearly went towards the guys that were scoring goals, that they were getting points, which is a departure really from their philosophy by and large, which was that. So then then you probably get Islanders fans as we're piecing this together. I see them as the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with all the different things on the wall, and he's pointing all the pictures and all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this is the case, and they were trying to get offense, exposing Eberle seems strange, right? And then on top of that, not really making that deal for Tarasenko, which I didn't think they needed because they were replacing a lot of goals versus last season with, with Komarov likely not being in the lineup, Michael Del Cole, yada, yada, yada. You were bringing with Lee coming back with Palmieri, and Wallstrom kind of stepping up. That goals replacement was pretty good there. Now, again, going based on what has happened, not kind of guessing. We're not editorializing. They've brought up the players that can score goals. You're right. Del Cole has proven that's not his role, though, judging by the fact that they've had 7 games in a row having 3 or more goals against, 5-6 games in a row of 4 or more goals, and then a couple of 5s in there. Again, empty nets aside, kind of things like that. It's still not good, right? Sorokin can be your best player and he can bail you out, but that's still a low scoring game. That's not even a 3-2 game for the Islanders. It's still a 2-1 game and you're getting outshot by the Maple Leafs. So that it's definitely interesting to think about it. There was rumors with Sam Girardi from or whatever his name is from the Avalanche. Bringing him in, that would be really nice. There really aren't a ton of other options. Again, I can't get in loose head to try to figure out what on offense that would look like at this point. I think they're just looking to get everybody back. Hard to kind of figure out your cap situation. Although with a lot of these guys out on IR, I don't know what it means for that and if they are accruing space a little bit quicker that way. Not a cap expert. Leave someone to tweet at us that follows Cap Friendly a little bit more closely. Back down to earth for a second. With and kind of going back to Salo, Char comes back, lineup kind of starts to even out. James, you kind of mentioned this earlier. With Salo looking good, looking like he kind of belongs, does Lamoriello send him back to Bridgeport? Did they say this is really helping? We need a Chara replacement? Because the way that I see it with Chara is that as far as liability goes, he's a second Mayfield out there, which is why I don't think it works. We have a Mayfield. We have a guy that's really good at one specific thing and not a whole lot else. And you can't have a third of your defensemen like that. That's why it's not working. Because that pair even last year of Letty Mayfield wasn't great. Is the Chara experiment over? Is this a reason enough for Trotz to look at Salo and say, here you go. Play well until he comes back. Eventually Green comes back and everything else. Pellick as well. That defense starts to look a little more familiar again. Is that kind of the trajectory here?
I thought going into the season that it was a bit peculiar that the Islanders were going in with the notion that Zdeno Chara was going to be able to play 75 to 82 games. So peculiar, in fact, that I asked Lou Lamoriello about this. And he basically said that, for being 44 years old, Zdeno Chara is he's still an elite athlete, and we have no doubt in our mind that he could play full-time all the time, every game. And through 15 games of this season, that just hasn't been the case. So I don't think you'll see Lou or Barry so ready to admit that this might not have been the right move. That being said, I think the most drastic case scenario, if you'd like to call it that, is that they institute a platoon where, they're basically splitting games almost, 50-50 and nothing more than that. But I do think that Robin Salo, if he does continue along this trajectory, he will hop Sebastian Aho as the number 7 defenseman. I think he would stay up with the team. And then it's just a question of how they're going to institute a rotation, I guess, if you'd like to call it that. So I think that there is a future for Salo here on Long Island, even after this COVID mess dissipates. It's just up to Barry Trotz to figure out how it's going to work.
I think there's a question for Lou as well as far as roster spots. So who's waiver exempt and who's not?
Sure.
And that might be some of it because you don't want to lose an Aho. You've proven you kind of need him around one way or another, even if they're not platooning Chara and whomever, like however that's going to work, and giving Salo some time. Does that mean Mayfield takes a seat every once in a while? But that's what's interesting to me is the waiver exempt folks are going to find their way back to Bridgeport eventually just by necessity. Just a problem based on the way that the contracts are and what they sign. So that kind of makes it really tough. Jay, what do you think? How does this shake out? Is there a possibility of the trade? We mentioned in Lou's comment earlier in his media availability on Tuesday. Does that play a role in it? Or is it kind of a wait and see, not worth guessing kind of thing?
As nice as it would be to, maybe make a move sooner rather than later, it's just not his style. I don't think he does, unless things get real bad where you learn that you're losing Pullock for the season, and that's not the case, right? It's 4 to 6 weeks. But if they had learned they were losing him for the season, maybe then, yeah. But they know that these guys are coming back, so I think that's what's making them pump the brakes a little bit. As far as your question about Salo, is he going to stick? He's got 5 games left at least to play with the Islanders, right? Chara went on the COVID protocol today. He's going to be at least, I think it's 7 to 10 days. So he's got 5 or 6 games to show that he belongs, and 2 games is not too much to base that off of. So, if Salo is an in-house replacement, that immediately relieves a trade that you have to make, because maybe they do trade for a Sam Girard, but Salo works out to be just as good. Maybe not right away, but down the line. And now you're like, okay, why do I need 2 of these guys? And then you have to make another move later. So, everybody's been crying for that elite goal scorer. If they make the move for Sam Girard now, they can't do it later. Say, don't, this is pure speculation and just a name I'm throwing out there, but for Vladimir Tarasenko. So, I don't mind giving Salo a little bit more of a look. I know, we're bleeding right now, and it's tough to it's tough to watch, but I think you have to give Salo some more time, let him get his feet a little bit more wet in the NHL, and go from there. We're going to talk about the time to panic yet. 2 home games. I get it. This is tough to watch at the moment, but
yeah. Well, let's hold on going too far into that.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have a last thought on? I feel like around the horn here on ESPN. Joe, do you have a last thought on that? You look like you just wanted to say something, so I wanted to make sure if you had before we moved on.
I think you pretty much nailed it there. I do not envy the position that they're in right now. I will say that because, again, picking certainly seems slim as it is. I think their defensive depth is on the way. They're just not deep enough yet, and it's showing right now. So, it's going to be messy this year. Unfortunately, I think with the blue line, something that was able to be relied on so often. So, yeah, hold on, folks.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts before we kind of get to the final topic here of the panicking, and the first thing is I think it shows that there's an opportunity here to show what the Islanders have as far as trade chips, right? If Golishev comes in and starts playing really well, even in a panic or whatever, the Islanders could use them as trade chips to get some of these other players with a lower pick if they're playing well. I think it's a really good opportunity for them. A silver lining, to use your phrase earlier, Joe. That might be what we can maybe look at here. Lou will use the time if he has it. I really don't know how much time he actually has, considering where the Islanders are and how much catch up they. As somebody said earlier, they still need to win the games. That's a thing there. And I think at this point you kind of have to make a move sooner than later. I'm not saying in a week, maybe even 2 weeks. But if this keeps kind of getting worse, you have to stop the bleeding before you lose a leg here, and then you're kind of hopping along into the break, and then coming out of the break, you're still trying to figure things out. You really want to be able to kind of pick up with speed there. So I don't know that trading for a player and then not having them play with you and kind of having to go down the stretch run there to kind of secure a playoff spot is the way to go. And is a good. What I was thinking about this today as I was writing this, and I think I'll try to write something a little bit longer on this for the hockey writers. I kind of need to put my thoughts together. Maybe both of you will help. But thinking about the panic button, thinking about where the Islanders are, what do they need to do, what does it look like? I was reminded, just kind of poking around of the Lightning, right? So and I had their whole thing up of when they made the playoffs, when they didn't. They missed it, sandwiched in between making the conference finals. They missed the playoffs completely. They made 2 long runs again. Then they missed the playoffs again. They make another run, and then they win 2 cups. Something along those lines of that kind of thing. The Islanders not making the playoffs this year is not the end of the world. Teams do this all the time. They take steps back. They go through this. You saw this with the Lightning. They make it all the way. This is not like, and this is not poking fun at the Rangers because I thought they had a really good team in those years, but making it all the way to the final and losing against the LA Kings. They were really good second round teams, those Ranger squads, but they really couldn't. There was something stopping them from getting over that hump all the way. The Islanders have proved their final hump is kind of avenging these Lightning squads, right? So I think that this is a little bit of a different situation, but I would compare them to the Lightning in so much as they do miss this year. It's not rebuild mode. You're not tearing anything down. I think you retool next summer if that's even the case. We're jumping way ahead, not even 15 games into this season. But just some perspective here. Not that I think both of you need that, but maybe for a listener that is panicking a little bit, there's something there. Like don't worry about it. The Lightning have figured it out. They won 2 cups. They made a lot of good runs over the last 5 years. Maybe don't worry, but I'll throw that to both of you. Jay, is it time to panic? Typically by this point, U.S. Thanksgiving, stake in the ground for making the playoffs. Brian Lawton said that earlier today on Twitter. We started a week later, as he mentioned. Maybe not. I don't think the Islanders' fortunes change by this time next week all of a sudden, and they're back in it. Even if they won 3 in a row, I don't know what that looks like for the rest of the division, who are also going to be playing games, and everyone seems to be winning at the same time. New buildings, Olympics, pandemic. Is it time to panic? Where do we go from here?
I don't think the question is it time to panic? I think that's already happening. I think it's
no. Do you think? I know that people are panicking, right? But is it the right time for it? Are we actually?
I understand being worried. Now, I do also understand the circumstances that this season started off, with the circumstances that they're under right now, and the circumstances moving forward once this is in the rear view. Once they're healthy and back together and playing regular games, they went 21-4-3 at home last year. That's incredible. And I know it's a new building. Is it really their home yet? Yada, yada. When their fans are behind them, they win games. And I know, the first two
to cheer, as kind of Joe said, is they got
understand.
taken out of it pretty.
I understand. The first 2 games didn't go, as expected. You also didn't have your captain. You also didn't have the longest tenured Islander in on the roster right now. You didn't have a lot of pieces that you were missing.
Josh Bailey.
That's Josh Bailey. Listen, it's tough right now. I totally get it, but look at what's going on with them. They just came off of a 13-game road trip. Was it a road trip? They came home, yada, yada. I get it. They didn't play in front of their, home crowd. They didn't get a mojo going. The, 1 game a week for weeks was tough. 2 games tops. They haven't gotten able to get their mojo. They haven't been able to get into a rhythm. Now, I will say they'll have to play spectacular down the line now. They're obviously behind. Is it impossible? Look at the St. Louis Blues in 4 seasons ago.
That's a really good point.
Last to first, and then they won it. So look, is it impossible? No. Is it going to be easy? Also, no. It's going to be tough, but we've said this before. This team didn't just forget how to be good. Like they're a good team. They're just going through a ton of adversity right now, and they're going to have to figure out a way to overcome it. And
Yeah, tough.
I wouldn't doubt they do with Trotz behind the bench. It's a little bit longer than what we've seen before, but
yeah, tough to judge a team, especially the loss against Toronto. That you lose 3-0. You can say
Right.
it's tough. Their top pairing defenseman, with the footnote, also one of the top defensive pairings in the league, was not there, and they lose 3-0. Even if the rest of the lineup's there, I think they lose that game without their top pair. Right? Like that's just not going to be a recipe for success for them. A team that relies on it that heavily. The rest of the defensive pairing is notwithstanding. Like I almost don't care. The fact that both of them weren't there, it's really tough to pick them to win that game. That's just not something that I would do necessarily. Joe, panic button. Is your hand hovering? Is it not even out of the drawer yet? What's going on?
What do you have to panic about?
I'm worried. Like I'm saying this. Like I think I'm trying to put forth some of the anxiety I think that other fans have.
What do you have to panic about? It's the Islanders have played 15 games this season. They had a 13-game road trip that they somehow almost came out of at 500, which, again, the way it finished, not good. Not good. You lost the last 4 games, not good.
Handily, though. It wasn't that they lost them. No, I'll never care. I think it's also the pointless part. Like, to not even bring games to OT.
Right.
They need to go, that 17-game point streak, they need to go, like, 7-0-10. Like, I don't even care. They just need to collect points. Not against the Metro and give points away.
Sure. And that's the thing. Okay. They're a game under 500 when they come home. All of this stuff happens, like James alluded to. You're 15 games in the season. At this point, I would expect them to lose every night until this is resolved. You can't tell me that you went into Saturday night in the home opener and Sunday against the Maple Leafs and you legitimately thought that the Islanders were going to win.
I thought that this team who, when we started this season, I had asked the question with Jay, do they need some type of adversity? Is this not good for this team to not have that thing? Everyone, Wyshynski's out there picking them, Dangle's out there picking them.
Sure.
Sportsnet folks, like they're finally like, even the podcast who should not be named, was picking them. We can't pick against them. I think there was something to that. This is probably too much adversity. Maybe I used that line earlier on the show. I meant to. It was in my head. But like this is a lot of adversity to overcome. And even though they're a team that is capable of using that to their advantage, even if you lost, again, they lose the next 3 and don't look good. That's tough. But yeah, this past weekend, I kind of expected them to beat Calgary. Toronto, maybe not, because they're just on a roll, and I don't know what. They may have lost that game with a full roster. Who even knows? But Calgary, who both of their goalies are being talked about like Sorokin and Varlamov last year, I think they were kind of rolling and coming in. They've scored first. They've won 11 games so far when scoring first, and they did so against the Islanders. However, I kind of just expected them to clamp down. I really did. And it was tough to watch it just like struggle to do anything. It was like I was watching the Winnipeg Penguins game last night. Winnipeg was the better team. They just couldn't get these passes to connect. They had the puck, and they just, like, every single time they tried to do something, they just couldn't do it. It was like the engine was sputtering. It was there. It was going to fire. It wanted to. It just something wasn't rolling. So yes, I kind of did expect them to more competitive than they were. Sunday's different story. Half the lineup is even worse, right? Saturday, home opener, crowd.
No.
I don't know. I expected better.
No. I mean, listen, Saturday, half the defense is missing too. But regardless, we've seen the Islanders go on runs. We have. And I think what's going for them right now, obviously, not only the games at hand, but that they have the games at hand, and now they're going to start playing the Metropolitan Division. Now they're finally, this is the opportunity for them to really start making up ground. Again, if things hold out the way that they do, and the NHL doesn't bail them out per se by postponing these games, it might not be pretty. I mean, you might be seeing a couple of tough nights on Wednesday and Friday against the Rangers and the Penguins, and that is going to hurt. And that, I think, is when you start to really worry, because then not only are you dropping points, but you're automatically securing the gap between you and divisional opponents widen.
Yeah, and what worries me is that teams like the Penguins, who went through a ton of injury troubles earlier this year, they spanked the team like the Toronto Maple Leafs with a depleted roster. And that really, really worries me that the Islanders just aren't capable of that next man up. I know they did it during that 17-game point streak. And they call up, Bardreau. You're talking about a third-line center at that point. You're not talking about really big-name players. They didn't have a third-line center really to depend on at that point. It was a little bit of a mess, or as James said a million times, just a black hole until Peugeot shows up. So, yeah, I kind of expected them to do better, and now they need to. Exactly to your point, you can't play 3-point games against in the Metro. Really, the rest of the season, you cannot play a 3-point game, especially now that the regulation wins hold a little bit more water in the tiebreaker. You have to win those games straight up. You got to keep the goals against low, which they're capable of doing when they're playing defense well and their whole lineup is there. But these next 3 games, it'll be a real gut check. Sure, I guess throw the last weekend in the garbage. What did you say last season? Burn the tape. Sure, I can get on board with that. My issue is that there's too good of an excuse starting Wednesday night against the Rangers. We're going to, it's a rivalry game. It's going to be no holds barred. Now, that could work to the Islanders' favor, who are tough. The Rangers have Ryan Reeves. It's one guy. The Islanders are a lot tougher than that. And you throw Panik in the lineup, you throw Parise, who can throw his body around. You have the fourth line. I think you're okay there. But you got to get it for that energy. You got to break the streak. I'm not saying post a shutout, but you got to win the game. So tomorrow, to me, is a big turning point. The Penguins are also going to come in. Another big rivalry. They've played them in the playoffs recently. They've kind of cut their teeth against the Penguins in 2013 in that series, which I still think is a big turning point for this franchise. So yeah, I kind of expect more out of the roster, which is why I'm getting worried. When you see a roster and you see a structure that really should be plug and play, if they're going to be strategic and only call up certain players, I kind of expect the results to be different.
I think you're right to a point about the plug and play, but I just think with the widespread stuff that's happening here, where you're down 9 guys.
It is a different. That's
a completely different animal.
That's 3 lines. There's 3 lines of players.
Yeah, I mean that's
and a lot of your really good ones.
That's half your skaters. You're bringing in a half different roster basically. You're bringing in.
This is worse than a preseason roster. This is like not even a. Yeah. They would field more NHL guys.
Exactly.
Unless it was like a split squad.
Right. So sure. There's cause for worry. I get it, especially with these divisional games coming up. But at the same time, you're trotting out a roster that's worse than a preseason roster, and all of a sudden you're relying on these guys who were probably in the minor leagues thinking that they were not going to sniff the NHL, at least with this franchise, all of a sudden having to come in and having to try to stick to this rigid system that the starters and the normal skaters, the household names, they were having problems sticking to start this season. So
another good point.
Yeah, it's this is just listen, low expectations create high rewards basically at this point.
They definitely lose.
Yeah, really. I mean, the Islanders are the underdog for the foreseeable future.
That's fine. They've succeeded in that position.
Sure.
Jay, any kind of closing thoughts here before we wrap it up?
No, I think that last point was well said. They're right where Islander fans want them, the underdog.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow with the Ranger game and subsequent games in this weekend. Like I said before, the schedule doesn't get any easier as far as the timing. So they're going to be playing a lot of games in a short period of time leading up to the Christmas break, and then later the Olympic and All-Star break in February. But we'll see where it goes. Thank you to DraftKings and Manscaped. Make sure to use that THPN promo code with DraftKings and NHP20 with Manscaped, to the Hockey Podcast Network and Isles Fix. And of course, all of you, our listeners, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to the show, watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Nassman Hockey. Jay's smiling because I'm messing up the closing. And I bust his chops all the time for not reading the script. So wonderful way for me to have my first full hosting experience. Yeah, haha. You can also join our Discord for a safe space to chat with fellow Islander fans. Lastly, you can find Jay's work at the fourth period. I didn't rewrite the ending here. You can find Jay's work at the fourth period, my work at the Hockey Writers, both of us at Isles Fix, and Joe Pantorno at AM New York. Until next time, let's go Isles.